What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So now that we have our hands on all of the 5 elders, of course, we need to bring you guys the full dedicated showcase for these guys. Now, this is going to be like, yeah, definitely a showcase in some capacity, but also more of like an overall discussion about this team, how it's come together, and just my overall thoughts and opinions on this team, because I know a lot of people have been asking that question to me, especially like on live streams and stuff. A lot of people asking like, you know, should I pull for these characters or should I wait for something else? And hopefully this video gives you a bit more of a discussion and insight into my opinions about these characters. I have answered those questions on my stream before, but I think having a succinct video to kind of discuss them is going to be really good for a lot of people out there, okay? So just straight off the cuff, a lot of people are going to ask that question in regards to, should I pull for these units? Now, in my honest opinion, you should not pull for these characters if you don't have all of them. Like, yes, some of them are going to be really useful if you know, can use them in other teams and stuff, but the real value in these characters is when you can use them together. And if you don't have the capacity to do that, then in my honest opinion, I would probably avoid doing so, because in my honest opinion, I don't really think these characters are going to see a ton of play moving forward. I really think that the best use case for these characters, like in the future, is going to be in like mini maps for treasure map bosses. And because regardless of whatever content you're going up against, as long as you have like 2 captains that are 5 elders, you're going to have max charge specials for all your 5 elder characters. So the way that I kind of see things moving forward is like the best case scenario is you'll have like the full squad or whatever it may be. You'll have a bunch of these 5 elder characters, and using them as captains, you're going to have them fully charged, ready to go. So even if the characters don't receive cooldown in that specific treasure map mini boss fight, it doesn't really matter. And because they have such powerful specials, they're going to carry you pretty far in those mini-map bosses. That's just the kind of way that I see it. Like, yeah, obviously, the thing that a lot of people are kind of excited is to trial this team out in a Super Boss Kizuna sense. And while I do agree that would be really fun to trial them out in a piece of content where you can just go, like, balls to the wall, it doesn't really matter, you just try and do as much damage as you possibly can. The issue with that is that typically Super Boss Kizunas carry heavy debuffs, and on top of that, you typically have to use a special to get through stage 2 in some capacity. And with the way that things are kind of designed right now with this team, is that you're kind of screwed in that regard, because while they have some key utility pieces in their special to get around certain gimmicks and certain debuffs, if you aren't specifically bringing specials to counter the specific bosses, you're just going to be kind of screwed. Because, like, okay, hypothetically, let's say you go into Super Boss Kizuna and the enemy has Intimidate. Well, all of your buffs that are inflicted by that Intimidate are essentially worthless, because if they have an Intimidate that reduces color affinity, well, Walkyrie's special just doesn't work anymore. He no longer provides you that 5 times affinity, because all of the 5 elder buffs from their specials are all 1-turn buffs. So obviously that's a huge issue. So I really think that they could have designed this team a lot better. If they wanted to make this team like as powerful as we were kind of hoping it was going to be, in my honest opinion, I would have loved them to see something along the lines of like having HP guard, because while you have Walkyrie with his EX super that can get around burn and gives you damage reduction, having HP guard can kind of subvert and get around a bunch of debuffs at once. You can get around burn, you can get around the pain debuff, you can get around poisons. So you have a character like the EX super of Walkyrie to remove burn. You have Saint Saturn special who can remove poison, and the fact that Saturn is also a Rush Sugo special character, which obviously requires you to reduce your HP when you're performing that damage tap. If you have HP guard, that would allow the rush to be performed at max capacity. So yeah, just weird things like that, like small tweaks to these characters, in my opinion, would have been really nice to make this team even more powerful than what it is. Because the way that I kind of see it right now is that Bandai have designed these 5 elders for very specific purposes, and there's going to be probably a fight that will come out in the future where all 5 of these characters will be perfect for that specific piece of content. But then, you know, outside of that, there's not really going to be many use cases for them. Like, you can see that in this video, we're going to be using them against 2 arenas and a clash. And while I would love to use all 5 elders at the same time, it's kind of impossible to use all the elders in one team succinctly whilst getting through a just normal piece of content, because, you know, heck, like in this content versus Sasaki that we just went through, you're gonna have to deal with a ton of special reverse. And while some of these characters on this team have the ability to resist special reverse, as a crewmate that is, then like you just can't get around everything. In this specific piece of content though, we're going up against Clash Marco. This one is a very old Clash event, and this is one of those rare scenarios where you can actually get away with using the full 5 Elder team. So when you're able to do it, it's a bunch of fun, and it's just the fact that we don't receive normal content these days. We don't get clashes, arenas, coliseums, heck even GARP challenges. Like if there was a GARP challenge that would come out specifically for the 5 Elders, where you want to use like mono driven teams or whatever it is, like they just don't do stuff like that anymore. So these characters aren't really going to be as valuable in normal content, because as we all know, as a lot of veteran Treasure Cruise players know, it's all about the quote-unquote booster meta. So if you're not pulling the most recent units, you're just kind of going to have a hard time with the most recent content. And while these characters may seem shiny new toys that everyone wants to get their hands on, these are characters that, while seem really cool right now, they're just not going to see a ton of play moving forward. And it's honestly something that Treasure Cruise has had an issue with for many years now, but I think that specifically with the way that they've kind of released these 5 Elder characters, releasing the 5 Super Sugo Fest characters separately, while I understand this is probably the best way to have done that, and a lot of people were having that, that kind of question, asking themselves, like, how are they going to release these characters? We had Saturn release early, and then we had the other 4 release later on. I think that the way that they released it was probably about right in terms of how they were supposed to do it, but the fact that they only really work well with each other is the honest major downfall of these characters, because when you want to use them in other teams, you're not going to have that benefit of having that minus 15 turns of cooldown captain ability working for them. So unless if you are using them as a captain, you're just kind of screwed. So you can still do things like that, like if you want to use Peter as a captain, because he has a really cool special, really high orb boosting special, buffing your attack boost, removing a bunch of damage threshold, like, yeah, I get it, but unless if you're using him as a captain, you're just kind of gonna get screwed. Now, another thing about it as well is activating the EX supers of these characters is honestly really tricky, because you need to have either like one of the buffs at an absurdly high multiplier, which you can only really do if you are really focusing in on that buff. Like for the example of Peter, I think for his effect you need an 8 times orb boost, which is pretty tricky to achieve, especially if you're not aiming to run a full 5 Elder team and you're just trying to build like a driven powerhouse team with Peter as the captain. Then you've got his special, which can range between a 4 to 5x, and in order to get his EX super to activate, you're gonna either have to have another like 4 to 5x orb boost to kind of allow you to achieve that EX super, or alternatively you have 4 or more characters on the team that are either Celestial Dragon, 5 Elder, or Navy. So unless if you're running like a Navy focused team, like that's like I guess the only scenario that's going to work in the case of using these characters outside of their intended team with the 5 Elders. And that is going to be an issue moving forward, because there's not really a ton of good Navy characters that are going to work well with all these characters. Now, yes, there are the rare recruits that have been releasing with Saturn, with Peter, Nostro as well, and then obviously you had Mars and Valkyrie. Like, they had those Navy characters that had come out, and those characters are pretty solid. But again, like, they are just the most recently released characters. And I guess another issue with all of this is the fact that if they would give some of the older characters in Treasure Cruise their tags that they should require, it will be a lot easier to build teams. Like, we know that the treasure map is going to be starting by when I'm recording this video. It's currently the night before the treasure map, and like one of the wave clear characters for the teams that I wanted to use is a Dex Akainu, an old limited rare recruit character. And while yes, he should definitely have the Navy tag because he's an older rare recruit, he doesn't have the tag, which means that I have to add an extra character on my team in order to fulfill the condition for another effect. It's just really dumb. And look, we had the tag mechanic introduced into Treasure Cruise in version 15, right? And I think that was around April, May-ish, and it is currently October of the same year, and we haven't had any additional characters added to tags. So what the hell is going on? And I guess, again, like, we already, have made extensive videos and posts about the whole tag mechanic in general, but again, it really does come down to it, because if these older characters have the Navy tag, it is going to be easier to use these 5 Elder characters outside of their intended team. But while a lot of this video has been kind of detrimentally talking about the 5 Elder team, when you do get the team to work as intended, it is a hell of a lot of fun. And while you see in a lot of these examples, we don't necessarily need all 5 on the team at once. Of course, as long as you're fulfilling the condition to proc the EX Super when you use Saturn or Peter Special to allow the rest of the EX Supers to proc, that's honestly more than enough in a lot of cases, right? And you gotta remember that when you're launching the character special abilities, they're granting you these buffs of like 5 times, up to 5 times multiplier, right? And on top of that, some of them can also enhance the multiplier of other buffs that are withstanding on your team. So even if you're not running that full intended team, these characters are providing so much damage, and they have like a couple of key pieces of utility. They are going to be insanely powerful units moving forward. But saying all of that, I just do not think these characters are going to see a ton of play moving forward because of the nature and kind of the landscape of Treasure Cruise right now. I hope that makes sense. But anyways, overall, these characters are a bunch of fun to use, and I do definitely enjoy using these characters in Pirate Rumble. Pirate Rumble is its own separate thing, of course, because team building in Rumble is definitely more free because you're not really going up against any real specific piece of content where you need specific specials to get around certain gimmicks and debuffs and stuff like that. It's kind of totally different, where you're just kind of like brute forcing your way through stuff a lot of the time. So Rumble is different, and these characters all work very well in Rumble in their own dedicated teams with the 5 elders, but they also work really, really well with their own types or their own classes, which is something that I can definitely get behind. But I guess I digress in regards to the Rumble stuff. But I know a lot of other people are probably asking the question as well, is like, which ones would you rank? Now that definitely comes down to like whether you're talking about Rumble or you're talking about normal content. Now in regards to just normal content, when I was building teams for this content, I always found myself wanting to use Jupiter or Saturn because their special ability could easily proc the EX Super of the other characters. So I guess it depends on what team composition you're trying to go for. But Saturn and Peter are obviously very useful to have. I like Mars because his special ability can be injected in a lot of really cool scenarios. I don't often see myself using Valkyrie that much, which is a bit of a shame. And Nustro is only really going to be useful if you intend to have other attack and all boosting type of abilities. But Nustro's special ability alone can kill a bunch of mini bosses in the game, so that's not really going to be much of a problem. So it's something in that kind of order. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video today. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions now that we have all these characters together down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.
Pacifista.